I will show you a simple point here. So how to handle that, right? How we can work with that. Actually, configuring of enums. So for a type specification, and important, enum is not just a collection of numeric constants. It is a combination of both numeric and string constants actually. Let's see this point. Here we are configuring an enum. So let's create an enum. We are configuring an enum, enumeration enum, and enum type. So what is the enum name? You can define an enum name, enumeration name. Suppose I give an error codes. Error codes is the enum name, and I'm defining some properties. OK is 200. That is one enum, and created is 201, and like accepted is like 202, like authoritative is 203. These are the values: 200, 201, 202, 203. These are the values stored in this reference, so that you can easily access those values by referring to these names, these properties, referring to these properties. One of the ability of enum is, if I am defining no content, no content, no content. If I am defining no content after authoritative, no content, I am defining no content, and value is not configured. So value is not configured. If value is not configured, then what it will do is, based on its previous value, it will apply the next value to this reference. Based on the previous value, it will apply the next value to its reference, to the next value to the reference. In that case, what will be the value of no content? What will be the value of no content? So the value of the content, no content, should be 204 automatically. So whenever you are not defining any value, the value will be configured according to the previous value dynamically. So that means console.log, and here we are defining no content, status code, and we need to print the no content status code. Then we use dollar. So no content status code is dollar error codes dot no content. We have to access that reference. It should return the value. If value is not configured, it should return the value for this as 204. Then you can run this and tsc demo.ts and node demo.js, and you can see it should say it is 204. So based on the previous value, it have to configure the value. It should configure the value. Now here so many points are there. That means the no content status code is 204. That means I configured in this way. I'm copying this and I'm adding that here. So I'm adding that here. So this is an example. Then obviously the status code, it returned 204 for this. For example, if I haven't configured the value for OK, then what should be the value of OK? What will be the value of OK? What will be the value of OK? Actually, the enum values will start with 0. Enum values start with 0. That means it depends on, there is no previous value, na? It will continue the previous value if there is a previous value. If there is no previous value, it is not going to assign the next value decrementation. Usually enums start with 0 only. That means if you are trying to access console.log, so here I defined okay. In the current situation, error codes dot okay, what it should do, it should return 0 for that error status code. It should return 0 for that error status code. You can see it returns 0. So that means this value depends on the previous value. If there is no previous value, then obviously it will be okay. It will start with 0 only. It will start with 0. That means if there is no specification, that means, so if there is no specifications, just one point here, another example is there is no previous value. So if no previous value, then the value starts with 0. So here another important point. Suppose here no content is given as 204, and suppose 205, and non-authoritative is not defined with a value. What will be the value of non-authoritative? The value of non-authoritative. What will be the value of non-authoritative? It will be 203. Yes, I hope you good understood about this now. It is not like filling up the gap with step values. Understood? It is not filling up the gap with step values. It is just like filling the value based on its previous occurrence. Understood? Yes. Based on its previous occurrence, it configures the value and it defines the value. That means in this case, so generally in this case, right? So generally in this case, yeah. Now in this case, what happens here is technically, so in this case, what happens now is this non-authoritative, it will return as non-authoritative. If you are accessing, it will return as 203. So it will not fill up the value. It is not going to fill up the value. It is not going to fill up the value, right? It is not going to fill up the value, right? So that is generally how it handles the values, how it configures the values. So enum can handle the values, right? And dynamically initialize the values, right? And a very important point here you need to know is enum can initialize values dynamically only for numeric type constants, that is important. Enum can initialize value only for numeric type constants. Enum can initialize value only for numeric type constants. That means now many people immediately have a question like, sir, if I am using a collection of string, enum can have a collection of strings also. If I am having a collection of string, then what will be the value? If it is a collection of string, so then what will be the value? That is important. So what will be the value generally if string, then it cannot apply the values. A string, it cannot apply the values. No, it cannot apply the values. That is what we said. Enum can initialize value dynamically only for numeric constants. So for example, one value is a. Suppose, so we have value 1 is equal to a. That is a string type. I will show you string type also. Value 2 is not defined. It is not configured. So that means now what will be the value 2? So if you have defined constant, I will show you that, right? That is the situation. Suppose there is a value 2 defined as a, and there is no value for 1. What is the value for 1? What will be the value for 1 now? The value for 1 will be automatically 0, because it cannot understand that whether you are using a string constant or a numeric constant until or unless value is assigned. Actually, if you haven't configured anything there, then obviously it has to show you 0, because by default it starts with 0 only, na? By default enum starts with a 0 value. Even you define a string constant, if you define a string constant, it will use a string constant. If you are not defining the string constant, then it will be using 0 as a value for initializing, right? So what is that? So no content value. You can guess other values now. You don't need to ask every point now. Like if I don't give 202 this, what will be this? Understood? If no content value is 204, right? What will be the non-authoritative value? It is very simple. It depends on previous value, na? Yeah. Is there any confusion there, Arvind? Right? It depends on previous value. It doesn't depend on next value or step value. Understood? There is no point at all there. So for example, so here one more option is there. Suppose here also we have 204. What will be the non-authoritative value? It is valid. Everything is valid. Non-authoritative value will be 205. It just depends on existing value. It's not like there cannot be duplicate values. They can be duplicate values. You can configure duplicate values, right? Yeah. So that is the basic approach of configuring the values and defining the values. And important, so one more point is enum can be a collection. It can be a collection of string constants also. It can be a collection of string constants. All string constants must be initialized. All string constants must be initialized with a value. That is very important. Must be initialized with a value. And enum cannot dynamically configure values. So if they are string type, it cannot dynamically configure values. So enum configures a numeric value for a string constant if it is defined as the starting index value. Understood? These are the points. So it will not take null. So it is not allowed at all. Understood? We discussed about parameters. Can there be a required parameter after optional parameter? Can there be a required parameter after optional parameter? There cannot be a required parameter after optional parameter, right? So every string constant must be initialized. if you are using string constants and you are not initializing them, that means here, so enum, and play, and here I am defining. So enum play, we have options like last, we have like next. So this is having a string next song, right? So, and we have the options like previous. So, and this is like previous song, and we have like, so previous song, okay, and we have like some first, right? This is the first song, okay, like this we have options. Now, is it invalid or valid? Is it invalid or valid? This is valid. What will be the first value of last? This is valid. What will be the value of last? Value of last will be 0. Value of last will be 0, right? So that means if I print here console.log, that means here, so here I am defining last value. So I am configuring last value, and dollar, and here we are defining, so play dot last. I'm accessing that play dot last. I'm configuring play dot last. And here console.log, I said some previous, and here I'm defining play dot previous. So we are configuring this. Then obviously when you are defining this, then it has to get the value and display that value. And you can see that it is showing last value is 0 and previous is previous song. Okay, now important here, we defined last is equal to last song, and I am not defining the next song value, then it is invalid. I hope everyone understood. That means it is mandatory to initialize the values that you defined in a string constant, and it cannot dynamically fill the values, right? The starting value, if it is a starting value, then it cannot dynamically define that. So it cannot define a string value. It will assign a numeric value into this. It assigns a numeric value into this. That means here, what is the point you need to understand is enum can contain, so enum configures a numeric value for string constants, for string constants. If it is defined, if it is defined as the starting index value, So you can configure that. That means, for example, this is the example here. So this is the next record, next song, and here last is not defined. But this is valid. Let's keep a syntax. This is valid. So this is valid. That means last, this is valid. This is valid, and it will put 0 into it. Suppose I defined another option here. So some next fast options are defined, and there is no value defined for the preceding operations, right? So no value defined, and this is invalid, not allowed. So it should have a value. If it is presiding with a string, after the string constant, there must be initialized with a value. It must be initialized with value. And another important point is enum can contain collection of both string and numeric constants. It can have collection of both string and numeric constants. It can have both string and numeric constants. Already just now we saw that it is having a combination of both string and numeric constants. That means Already you saw that. So that means it can have a combination of string and numeric constant, right? That means by default it is, I will step by step tell you, right? No hurry. You just wait, you will get answer for every question. Understood? Right. So one by one we are learning. We are discussing every point, right? So here the first thing is how we configure the enums, how it allows the values, how it will dynamically fill the values, and how it can configure the string constants and numeric constants. If it is string constants, what are the limitations? How do we configure the constants, right? And another important point is it can contain both string and numeric config. For example, so here we are defining last is equal to 0 and previous, here next is equal to this, and previous is equal to 1. It can contain a combination of both of them. Understood? It can contain a combination of both of them. That means it can have a string constant, it can have a numeric constants, it can have a combination. It can have a combination. Now in that case, in this case, if I don't define value for first, is it valid? If I don't define value for first, is it valid? If it is valid, what is the value for first? It is valid and its value will be 2 because based on previous value now. Am I right? That's good, right? So I hope you got a clarity on this point. That means it completely depends on its previous value. And if it is a string as previous value, it cannot preside with empty. Understood? If it is a string as previous value, it cannot define with empty. Everything you will learn, just wait, right? You are going to understand every point. Just you need to wait. You will understand all the points. Okay, right. So now that is one option. Another important point is here the combination. Here the important concept is actually enum values cannot be redefined. After initialization, enum values cannot be redefined as they are configured as constants, constants in memory. As they are configured as constants in memory, they cannot be redefined with the value. That means I access play dot, so previous is equal to 2. This is invalid. That means some value is configured there. The value is configured there. I am accessing, so play dot some value, some last value is equal to 10. That is invalid. You cannot do that. So because cannot assign, because it is a read-only property. It is a constant and it is a read-only property. You cannot redefine the values. You can just initialize the values. So you cannot redefine the values. So it is defined by using that. Right. Now, another important point, it is a collection of constants. Then in interviews, so many questions will come. One of important question asked in several interviews is, can we declare enum with the const as access specifier? Const as access specifier. Wait now, one by one you will learn. Why you are in a hurry? You people are always advanced than me. We are learning one by one topic. Suddenly you will ask, sir, will it allow boolean? Will it allow function? Will it allow expression? That's what we are learning, na? Right? Wait till the concept is completed. Why you are so excited and hurried into the topic? Slow, right? right? Now, question here, the question, can we declare enum with const as access specifier? Can we declare enum, right? Huh. See, what I said, it is mostly asked in interviews. Am I right? If you are able to answer, if they ask you the question that you can guess easily, that should not be an interview question. Huh? Understood? That means there must be something inside this if they ask this particularly, right? There must be something. So different thing point about this if they have asked this specially, if they have asked this specially, right? That means generally, so you can have const, you can have const. So the answer is yes, yes. Now the question is when to use enum as constant, because already it is a constant. When to use enum as a const? Actually, enums are used. Technically, const enums are used to configure to configure to configure to configure to configure enums with expressions. That means now this is an answer for the question, like can enum have an expression, can even have an expression. So answer is yes, enum can have an expression. When enum is defined with expression, then generally the expressions are defined by using this technique. The expressions are defined by using this technique. Usually that is what actually the concept of expressions. The concept of expression. That means you can define that. That means you can configure enum. So constant enum. So constant enum and enum name. So enum name. That means expressions. And here I am defining some properties like a is equal to some value 2, like b is equal to a plus 2. That is an expression. So that means you are handling an operation on a plus 2, and c is equal to b into a. We are defining some expressions. We are configuring some expressions. Generally, enums are configured with const, especially when they are initializing some expressions. Expressions. What is the intention of declaring enum as a const? If already it is a const, what is the intention of declaring enum as a const in specially expressions? Can you guess any answer for that? What is the intention of giving it as a constant if it is already a constant? Any guess? Already reassignment is restricted. What reassignment is restricted? I never said that enum cannot dynamically produce a value. I said that enum can dynamically define a value. Enum cannot dynamically define a value for string constants, right? Understood, Vijender? Yeah. Now, can you guess here what is the intention? Actually, so the intention is constant is indicating that by default enum configures every property A, B, C are properties, every property as a read-only attribute. You cannot redefine. Am I right? As redefined. And if it is an expression, if it is an expression type, then expression must have an initialization of operation. Am I right? Every property is used as an expression, then every expression should have an initialization. Am I right? Understood? That means every expression should have every operate property should have an initialization of values if it is specially expression. That means this const indicates that there must be the initialization for that expression. Understood? That means every value, every property that you defined in an enum, especially for expressions, it is mandatory that so it cannot be redefined with other values. Okay, that is constant. Here the constant indicates that expression need to be constant. That means property is already constant, that is managed by enum. Expression also need to be initialized, that is defined by this const. Understood? Everyone clear? Any confusion? That means enum is defining properties as constants, and the expression need to be a constant initializer. Expression need to be initialized with the values. In that case, so this const is required for that. Suppose we are handling here console.log, and here we are printing a is equal to dollar expressions dot a, and b is equal to so dollar expressions dot b. We are accessing the b, and c is equal to dollar, and we have expressions dot c. We are accessing these three values and configuring those three values. And when we compile this and we run this, and the three expressions are defined in this way. So that means it evaluates the value and returns the value. That means it can be an expression. Right. That is what actually the concept of expression, how we can configure the expression. Right. This is the basic approach you need to understand. So that means it can be constant, enum can have an expression. Now, many times this question comes here, right? Suppose enum is defined like this. Suppose b is greater than a. Now this is one option. Now this is very important here. Now it is not allowing it. So it is not allowing. That means it is not allowing this point. Now something to think about this. That means now you said that it can have an expression, but here I am using greater than or equal, and it is not allowing that. It is not allowing greater than or equal. That means now the point is, here is, so will it not allow any Boolean values? That means enum is allowed with Boolean value or not? Expression is allowed, na? Here we are clearly saying that expression is allowed, right? But important is it is unable to use. Expression is allowed. Already it is allowing, na? A plus b is an expression. A asterisk b is an expression. It is allowing. Now why a less than, b less than, greater than. Why it is not allowing this? This is another important doubt that comes. Why it is not allowing that? Another doubt will come here, right? So very important is the first concept is generally immediately the question comes is, are boolean types are allowed or not? Now immediately a question comes, are boolean type allowed or not? That is the question immediately comes. So that means boolean types are allowed actually. So boolean types are allowed. Boolean types are allowed or not? So that means actually boolean types are allowed. That means it allows booleans. It allows booleans. Technically, it allows booleans. So that means here I will configure some options like this. Suppose here I am defining the enum. So a is equal to, suppose true, I am defining true. That means here I am configuring the true value, right? And here I am defining b is equal to false. So initially it is showing that the boolean true and false are not allowed. So because actually enum is not directly expecting, true or false. It is not directly expecting true or false. Usually this true or false in actually JavaScript based, we define with 1 and 0. Understood? Understood? Right? Understood? That means they are generally defined as 1 and 0. Generally in JavaScript based environment, they are defined because it will take that. That means in JavaScript based options, in JavaScript based environment, the Boolean values can be configured. The Boolean values can be configured, but they are configured in a numeric type reference. But this is strictly typed. Our TypeScript is strictly typed. In strictly typed, so directly bool value type. So that means like true or false are not allowed. Directly bool type is not allowed. That means it will not allow this bool type. So that is important. That means it will not allow this. But JavaScript people have a habit of dealing with this with 1 and 2, because 1 and 0, because already you know that they handle it. But here it is not allowed. That means the point is, so here another question is, can you define a Boolean type constants? Can I define a Boolean type constants? Answer is directly the Boolean true and false are not allowed. So JavaScript can handle them with 0 and 1. So 1 and 0. I hope everyone understood that. That means if you are configuring an expression in this way, that means these are invalid. These are invalid. That is one important point. Now another point is, that means now another point here is, so enum. So one more question here is, so can we use all types of expressions for enum? So in enum, can we use all types of expressions in enum? That is another question. Answer is no. So enum supports only following operators. It will support only few operators: plus, minus, asterisk, slash, and modulus. These are all arithmetic operators, and it will support the operators like bitwise operators. It will support the operators like bitwise operators. It will support AND, it will support OR, and it will support caret. So these are all binary operators. Only these are allowed. These are allowed in your expressions. Other types of operators are not supported in expressions. So other type of expressions there cannot be there. So that is what actually you need to understand when you are dealing with enums, when you are configuring and working with enums. So that is the point about enums and how do we deal with the enum. And some more important questions here. So another important question here is when you are dealing with this type of concepts, one more means in interviews generally, you know the topic, but the way they ask the question can confuse you. Even you know the answer, sometimes you will be confused with their question, right? Why? Because generally in interviews they ask what is heterogeneous enum, genius enum. What do you say? Already you know this word, huh? Already you know this word. What is an heterogeneous enum? That means it is a combination of both it is a combination of both string and numeric type. Am I right? It is a combination of both string and numeric type. That is what actually the point is, right? That is what actually the point is. So that is one more. Another important, that's what I said generally in interviews. Another question is, so configuration generally, how they ask about enums. Another question asked regularly about the enum is, what is, let's write another question here. Yeah. Another important is, so what is ambient enum? Ambient enum. This is another regular question comes. What is an ambient enum? Actually, by default, all enums, that means all enums are by default non-ambient, ambient enums. All enums are by default on non-ambient enums. That means here the point is all are constants and have initializer. All are constants and have initializer. That is the point. So ambient enums actually, ambient enum refers to non-constant. Ambient enum refers to non-constant values in a collection. Non-constant values in a collection. So that means they doesn't have initializer. They doesn't have any initializer. That means you know already this, but you should know that these are called non-ambient enums. Already you know, this is not a new concept. That means, for example, we have enum error code, and in that enum we have not found is equal to 404. So is not found having an initializer? Is not found having an initializer? Is having an initializer now? Right. So timeout is not defined with a value. Timeout is not defined with a value. So method not allowed is defined with 405. And this type of enum. So here one important point. Now what is the value of timeout? What is the value of timeout? Timeout value is 405. 405. The next presiding value method not allowed. Not allowed. That is also what type? 405 only. Now these type of enums are called as ambient enums. It's very simple that if there is no initializer mentioned, it is called as ambient. Understood? If there is no initializer, then it is called ambient. And ambient enums will automatically configure the values, based on the previous value. Now, can there be an ambient enum? Can there be an ambient enum with string constants? Can there be an ambient even with string constants? Yes. Yes, in one situation. What is the situation? If it is the first occurrence, am I right? If it is the first occurrence, it is yes. So if it is not the first occurrence, it is not allowed. Am I clear? Right? Yeah. But the value must be first. That is what actually ambient is, right? Ambient enum is, right? One more important question asked in general interviews about this enum is, so what is enum? Enum, reverse mapping. Reverse mapping. This is another question asked in interviews. What is enum reverse mapping? So actually it is nothing but it is a technique. It is a technique used to access the name of enum constant. Enum constant. The name of enum constant based on its value. Its value. It is called reverse mapping. Enum reverse mapping. That means you can get the name of the property instead of the value. If you currently enums means they will get the value, and reverse mapping is a technique through which you can get the name of that particular property. Name of that particular property. That means here we have enum error code something. Okay. Here we have defined not found. Not found is equal to 404. Now I am writing let a is equal to error code dot not found. Okay. That means a contains what? A contains what? 404 na? That means console.log. So here I am printing a is equal to I need to print the value of a. Okay. That means you are collecting that. Now let status text. Status text is a property. Here we are using error code of a. That means 404. This is reverse mapping. Reverse mapping. Do you know what will happen now? Do you know what will happen now? That means the value, based on that value, you can get its property name. Based on the value, you can get the property name. Console.log. I defined here status text. Status text is what? Status text is what? So we need to define the status text. Status text. That means we have to get that status text and print. Okay. That means now it has to print. If you are directly accessing a, then it will return 404. And if you are accessing through reverse mapping, then it will be error not found. Understood? So this is reverse mapping. This is the concept of reverse mapping. That means how you can reverse map and you can access the properties. You can access the properties. So this is a reverse mapping technique. You can directly pass that 404. We are just using a reference for that and we are accessing and you are using it. This is the reverse mapping technique for enums. So these are all the basic and important things you need to understand. So how we can configure. Now, how to use these enums in the real world process, you are going to understand while working with our Angular concept, because this is all the language you are learning. Once you are good with the language, we will put them in different examples and we will see how to handle them, right? This is important about enums and constants and configurations. And reverse mapping, this is an example for reverse mapping. So how we configure the reverse mapping. These are very frequently asked questions in interviews, so related to enums. What the questions they ask, what expressions are supported, what constants, how it defines the constants, heterogeneous, what types are allowed. Now here several times, now so many doubts will come, right? Can I use as a function as an enum? That means, can I use a function as an enum? So you cannot have a function as an enum because it should be either number type or a string type or an expression type. There cannot be functions as enums. There cannot be a function as enum, right? Right. So you cannot have directly Boolean values as enums. Directly Boolean values as enums. That's also a point we have discussed. But actually JavaScript having a habit of using that with 1 and 0. But here it is not possible. So better to say Boolean types are not allowed, right? So enum type cannot be any type. Why? Because if it is an object type, how you will pass value into it? If it is an array type, how you will pass value into it? We need to dynamically handle them now. That means if there are reference types, then how you will dynamically pass a value? Can you render values into enum later? Can you render values into enum later? You cannot render values into enum later. So that is the reason, right? So these are all important points to understand, right? So this is all about how do we deal and work with the enums, right? So already I told you, enums, what is the situation to use enums? Generally, once you know about enums, how you use an enum. So to create a constant type, we use enums to create as types, constant types. Understood? What is the scenario of using enums? Enums are used for defining constant types. Constant types. They are used for defining constant types. That means you said enum. So enum. So that means I said HTTP methods. And here we are configuring the enum, that is option like get is equal to 1, right? So post is equal to 2, or you defined, yes, you can use weekdays and all. If you remembered, we learned about date type now. Remember date type? That means I will make you understand in your way what you learned. Suppose I say months, understood? So that means here we are configuring the value. So January, Jan, right, is equal to, so 0, it will start with 0, or just declare it will start with 0. So we have Feb, it will start with that. March, we will define that. That means it is a collection of constants now. Constant values. You know that all those values are configured. Then we are creating here LET, month. It is of type months. This is the type configured for this. That means what is month type now? What is the month type? It is a constant type. Am I right? It is a constant type. Month is a constant type. Month is a constant type, right? In that constant type, what type of values are allowed? In the constant type, what type of values are allowed? Currently, by default, what is the type of values for them? Here, in this case, what type of values? By default, they are 0, na? 0, 1, 2, 3, na? Am I right? Na? That means by default, it is 0, 1, 2, right? That means you created a constant type, and you are using that constant type for your references and for your memory allocations, for your manipulations. So that means now this month can have a collection of these constants only. We can configure the collection of these constants only. I will give you simple example how we can handle and work with them, right? In next session, we will see one simple point about how to create your own type with enum. Then you will get one clarity on that, right? So that means if you ask the question like, what is the intention of creating an enum? It is intention is to create a constant type so that that constant type can be used for your application whenever you need some constant values. You create a constant type and you can use that constant type, right? You can implement and you can use that constant type. That example I will show you how you will implement and use the constant types, but first point, how enum works concepts understood, everyone? Now how to implement with example we will see. We have just learned what it is today, right? How to use this enum, we will discuss about this with one example in tomorrow session, right? Tomorrow we will see about enums and modules and namespaces. These are the three things we need to discuss. Modules and namespaces, these are the three things we need to discuss. With that we can complete, right? Enums example, how we can implement them. Today we haven't learned how to use them. We have just learned what is enum, how it is configured, what are the limits, what are its points. How to use them we will see now, and how we can work with them, right? Then you will get more clarity on that. Then we can go into modules and namespaces. Tomorrow we'll continue with this, and mostly by tomorrow we can finish these concepts. Then we can start with our Angular concept, right?